Welcome to Watch It Real. I'm Ira Jersey, the men's general manager of Real Central New Jersey Soccer. With me today is Liam O'Connell. Liam is the senior director for youth development at USL headquarters down in Florida. Liam, thanks very much for coming on Watch It Real.
Ira, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So describe first for us what you do as the director of youth development for USL.
Easiest way to describe it is I try to serve as a consultant to all of the clubs within USL, with the main focus being how can we develop a youth to pro player development pathway in every community with which we have a quote unquote USL senior team competing in League Two, League One, or the championship. And so there's a number of player and coach development initiatives that kind of spin off that bigger vision. Ira, I lost sound. Apologies.
You know what? It's me. It's this mute button. I occasionally don't hit it hard enough, and
Hey,
I'm talking, and
with me, so don't
that
worry.
was the best thing I could have possibly said too. Uh, let's talk a little bit about the program that Real Central New Jersey Soccer, the new USL League Two team that's forming in the Trenton area, is going to be participating in, and that's the USL Academy Cup. So you had your first events over the last year. Obviously, COVID has suspended that, but discuss with us a little bit about what the Academy Cup program is, and what the goal is, and then finally, there's three parts of this question. The last part is, how did those first couple of events turn out, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, no, great questions. Well, we acknowledge that when we launched the USL Academy program formally, we knew that the North Star was eventually having a league where all of our senior team clubs could start to operate a pre-professional program year-round, right? But we knew that it was going to take some time to get there, and we honestly didn't know exactly when that timeline would really materialize. So we said, to get things going, let's at least start with a tournament event series, because we acknowledge while there are some clubs like yourself that are starting from scratch as a new senior team within USL, or a new professional club like a club like Tormenta or Birmingham Legion, for example. We also acknowledge that there were a lot of clubs that already had youth programs or could easily set up with an affiliation with a local youth club that maybe had a history of developing players for the professional or collegiate game. And so we really wanted to give all those clubs an opportunity to come to an event and almost just showcase the talent that's already in their market. And frankly, kind of answering the last part, it was a huge success. Not only did we have major markets like Miami and Boston, Chicago, and LA represented by top professional and youth clubs, and we had teenage professional players and other teams who are already on amateur contracts in professional environments competing at these events. But we also gave a platform for some of the newer communities and newer clubs to get involved. So we had clubs like Louisville and Omaha.
See, yeah, I was going to actually ask about Union Omaha, because in one of your videos showcasing the February event, I guess that was the East Coast event. No, excuse me, the West Coast event. You had October with the West Coast event. You had a Union Omaha player kind of featured in those videos. And given that my other podcast is USL League One focused, it was really interesting to see one of these youth players. What was the feedback that you received from some of those startup clubs like a Union Omaha or like a Birmingham Legion, or what advice could you give us, or could they give to us in the first round of creating these the teams around the USL Academy Cup?
Well, honestly, I'd say it's like, take the approach that they were taking, right? Where they didn't just say, "Oh, great, we're going to put in a team in Academy Cup, and we're going to show everyone in our market how to put together a competitive team." Instead, they used it as a way to say, how can we use this opportunity to give kids in our community exposure at a professional event with pro players, pro teams, scouts at every level, and how can we do it in a way that empowers the local youth soccer community? And so that's honestly the guidance I'm going to give to a club like yourself as well, is before you just say, this is how we're going to do it, engage everyone in and around your community. Find the clubs who believe in providing a platform and a pathway for their top players and who believe in wanting to support that. And then build relationships with them. Look to set up partnerships with those clubs and together provide that pathway for players that maybe didn't exist before. And like you said, there was that one kid interviewed for Omaha, right? He had that one line where he said, I didn't know if I'd ever get out of Nebraska. And
Right.
there's a lot of communities like that, where the reality is we are a large, rural, spread out country. And so I think if we can have more clubs like yourself, like Omaha, like Birmingham, like New Mexico, building those pathways, providing those opportunities, hopefully less kids will fall through the cracks than maybe historically has been the case, you know?
So for kids who might think about trying out for the Real Central New Jersey teams that we plan on sending down to the USL tournament next Memorial Day weekend and Memorial Day 2021, what can they expect at the event besides just playing some soccer games? Is there other things around the event that you guys do?
No, great question, Ira. And the experience around it is definitely a big part we're trying to sell. What I would really say is, like, every element of how we create this event is to make it feel like they're a step closer to professional soccer. Whether it's the second they walk into the fields, there will be academy branded archways and flags and banners. There's specific sides of the fields that only players and staff are able to have access to go towards. We have, very professional referee crews, how players walk out onto the field, the way in which we require players are checking in and out of the games using passes, and that we're retaining stats. We're luckily able to broadcast and stream some of the games. It's, again, just a lot of elements that make those players feel like this is more than just an average youth soccer tournament, let alone the fact that they may be competing against current pros or kids in pro environments, and maybe in front of professional scouts. The other one I'd say too is that we acknowledge, this is the other big one I want to drive home, is that we want these events to be something that where we can impact every stakeholder that drives the development of these young men and these young players. And that'll include females actually moving into this next edition of the Academy Cup as well. So we have educational opportunities for parents and players where they can learn about what it means to be in a youth to pro pathway, what it means to have a USL club like Real Central New Jersey that they could aspire to on the way to the pro level. We have coaching workshops where we get all the technical staff together to talk about best practices and how you may have found a solution to a challenge with the pay-to-play environment in New Jersey, or that maybe someone in New Mexico hadn't yet solved, and even referee development. So even though the refs aren't just hired to come and ref these games, they themselves are put through training sessions on the field, video reviews after their games, to really try to, again, elevate every aspect of player development tied to the event.
So one of the other programs that you guys are now starting is an academy league where you're going to have a single U19 team only, so only a senior team where there's going to be either a single club underneath them or a group of affiliate clubs where players could move potentially up and down that pathway. How do you see the Academy Cup integrating with the Academy League? And given that they are two somewhat separate events and organizations.
Yeah, no, good question as well. I think on one side, there's a player ID element. So Academy Cup gives you an opportunity to form a select team 1 to 2 times a year, depending on how many of the events that you attend and which age groups. So it gives you a chance to almost get an idea of who some of the top players are in your community in those select age groups. Whether that's an early identifier at the younger ages or identifying current top players that could be impact players within your Academy League team the following year. And the other piece is it's a stair-stepped approach to having a full-time program. Again, we acknowledge that by any of our USL clubs starting a full-time youth program, they're inevitably going to be they're going to be in a space where there are already clubs and organizations doing just that. And so we want to make sure that if there's anything that's being disrupted about the local youth landscape, it's again done hopefully in a positive, complementary, supplemental way to what those clubs are already doing. And so this gives you a way, again, to stair step your way and say, all right, we're going to work with all these clubs at first, have them just identify some of their top players. And then when the time is right, we can look to launch this one full-time youth team, though there'll still be the opportunity for players to kind of live between both worlds, their traditional youth club and now your USL Academy program. Oh, mute.
Geez, let's talk a little bit very briefly about something you just mentioned, and that's the women's program. So at Real Central New Jersey, we're talking about and planning on having both men's and women's programs immediately, where even though you might not offer a women's program in 2021, we're still going to be pushing forward with our own kind of all-star teams on the women's side as well, anticipating that you guys hopefully in 2022 will have a women's program. What are the hopes of the women's program? Because USL right now has primarily men's teams at the professional level and the pre-professional level, but in Super Y they play in other leagues presumably, and a lot of those USL clubs have women's programs at the youth level. So what are the plans for that, and what are you guys hoping to accomplish with the women's side of the game?
No, great question as well. And I think the biggest thing that we identified was, again, like, as we're encouraging clubs like yourself to set up these affiliate relationships, to identify local youth clubs that align philosophically with building that player development pathway, the reality is most of those clubs, 50% of the membership, that the families and players they cater to, are female and can't ultimately follow that path you're building to the elite men's professional side, right? In saying that, though, we have a lot of clubs like yourself that are already investing in providing a pathway to women's senior team football in America, whether that's through WPSL, NWSL, or hopefully something that will be rolling out in the near term as well to provide you that offering. And regardless of what level of adult women's soccer that you're trying to provide a pathway towards, even if it's just the collegiate game, I think we can all acknowledge that more and more young women are seeing a future in women's professional soccer. It's very clear that there's only that side of the game is only going to continue to grow. And so we want our clubs to feel like they also have a way to help provide that pathway for girls to experience a similar event as the boys do. And again, create really that feel that you as a club can provide a pathway for the whole community,
That's great. Liam, thanks very much for coming on Watch It Real. Your insights are very helpful, and I'm sure our community and our building club will find them very useful. And thanks to everyone for listening. Next week, we'll be back to having someone locally speak about growing soccer in Central New Jersey. With that, thanks for watching Watch It Real.